African family. In our African journey of unfolding consciousness, how do we return as victorious in the spirit of Sankofa? First, we must recognize that the world has generously borrowed, or in the words of George James, stolen from all our African wisdom, from every human endeavor, medical, scientific, educational, psychological, etc. Next, we must reclaim that our African ancestors gave us the Kemetic science of education and wellness, expressed through the pyramid texts, the Pertemru, the Medjugorje, their architectural genius, that we must use to teach the world how to build the lighted temple. Next, in building that lighted temple, those lighted temples are our institutions of marriage, family, community, schools, the world community, which will then reflect and transmit our African contribution to world civilization. Next, we must have an understanding of blackness, metaphysically understood, which I'll talk about in a moment. We must know what time it is, and we must understand key Medjugorje terms, Ka, Ab, and Ba, for unlocking our Kemetic science of education and wellness, because they bring us in alignment with the law of vibration, which we must understand. We want to give praise and appreciation to Molefe Asante in that he has oriented us in Afrocentricity, and to Dr. Jacob Carruthers in that he has oriented us in this intellectual warfare that we must undertake to reclaim our African wisdom and the world contribution that African people have made to world civilization. Toward this end, my husband and I have co-founded the Academy of Kemetic Education and Wellness, the Academy for Right Relationship and Right Knowledge, which is located in Boston, where we teach the African origins of the ancient wisdom and their application in modern daily living. We teach the language, all of the endeavors that African people have contributed in. Built the pyramids and charted the stars, gave the world medicine. Our African ancestors were masters in the science of the soul, mind and body, and the journey in unfolding consciousness. So the Kaaba Building a Lighted Temple curriculum that I teach is an African-centered model for psychological character, human development, consciousness development, spirituality, historically underpinned by our African and diaspora history. In this curriculum, I also teach from my other book, Secrets of Race and Consciousness, and my other book, Kaaba, The Great Pyramid is the Tree of Life, Merkaba. My husband and I also do counseling and consultation because the preservation of the black family and to work through the trauma in our relationships is key. We must have right relationship and right knowledge. The Academy has brought us into a world scholarship where we have shared with greats such as Dr. Nobles and Dr. Jeffries and Professor Small and Dr. Hunter and Dr. Anthony Browder and Dr. Charles Finch and so on. I am with the Department of Africana Studies at UMass, and so all of this scholarship is able to come through our academy. We link with a world scholarship, including yourselves. Here is one of our classrooms, and this is in the front here is the chair of our department, Dr. Prow, as well as another faculty member. Who was attracted to our program? Well, many of the students or initiates, because we are a mystery school, who come to our program have already been, many of them, to spacious and well-funded universities. But they come because they want to be anchored in an African-centered model of cultural competency. Some of them are teachers, some of them are nurses, some of them are alternative practitioners, some of them are builders, some of them are in architecture, and so on. So we're offering this advanced education. We take our students to Kemet. We graduate classroom after classroom. This young man at the podium is studying engineering at Northeastern University, bridging intergeneration, mother and son in these studies. Young people, artists, penetrative study. We get on the bus and we go hang out with Dr. J. Teach Medjunecher. These are our council of elders who watch over and shepherd our initiates. We fill a gap because we recognize there's a scholarship at the university level that hasn't quite trickled down to the preschool level, and yet we have generations in between who are already in their soul work and service, and they want to be anchored in an African-centered model. So we help to fill that gap with that we want to span from the university, from the preschool up through the university level. The Disa Makalani is part of our board. He brings hundreds of books of black scholarship for us to garner the penetration of this wisdom. Dr. Browder has taken our students to the Museum of Fine Arts. Professor Small has blessed us with his wisdom. Askia Touré. Now, so by reconnecting with our Kinetic Science, we see the way to build the monumental temple, which is both human and divine, which is ourselves, our families, and our communities and institutions, and how to restore the law of Ma'at so that we live in harmony, balance, and restore greatness to Africa and Africans. Now, as we made our outgoing footsteps out of Africa to populate the world, we got caught in climactic conditions that would lead to the unfoldment of the seeming racial types, the African, the Semitic, the European. Now, these would later be depicted in the tomb of Ramesses and expounded upon by CHEIKH ANTA DIOP. Now, along the way in this planetary journey, one seeming racial type, the European, set out on a malicious campaign of abnormalizing another seeming racial type, the African, for the purpose of conquer, domination, and exploitation. All, and when necessary, murder and destruction, all sanctioned by religion. Now, our ancestors knew of great cycles of time. And like the shape of the V in the word victorious, they knew that we would move from a spiritualization in consciousness, a period on our planet of greater spiritualization and consciousness, and that through cycles of time we would make our gradual descent into the vertex of the V in the deepest materialization of consciousness. And then through cycles of time, we would begin our hard, arduous uphill climb in a reascension into sacredness and a re-spiritualization in consciousness. So our African ancestors watched the shade steadily go down into this materialization of consciousness that now grips our earth. And all the while, Europeans, in this vertex of the V, Europeans would be garnering African wisdom, which they would give no attribution for. Europeans would distort, invert, rename, and claim as their own this wisdom, and by virtue of claiming, they would claim their superiority. They would then redispense their recapitulation back to us. It is no wonder we salivate like Pavlov's dog at Christmas, even when we would prefer not to, with so much African wisdom and divinity just right under the veil. In my work, I have been relentless in dispelling these symbols, tracing them back to their truth and original source, before they were whitened, negatively potentized, despiritualized, and called something else. Now, these outgoing footsteps that we made from our terrestrial home, Africa, are but a metaphor for seemingly leaving our celestial home or heavenly home. Professor James Small has oriented us by stating that we are gods having a human experience. Even Newsweek magazine in 1988 pondered, were Adam and Eve African? In our heavenly home, we knew unitive consciousness. And as we made our outgoing footsteps, we had many impacts along the way. Impacts that would dim our memory of who we are. So how may we regain an understanding, application, and practice of ancient wisdom in modern daily living such that we overcome this separative and materialistic consciousness that is now gripping our earth? Lesson number 1 in our sacred text teaches us the beginnings. The Genesis in the African creation story re-immerses us within unitive consciousness, movement within blackness, darkness, to express light in the world. Metaphysically, you cannot have light unless it is birthed out of blackness, uppercase B, uppercase D. Now, there are those who fear darkness, blackness, and this fear acts as an impediment in mapping Victoria's African journey in unfolding consciousness. As a planetary family, humanity has only to fear the darkness of its own making, lowercase d, humanly created darkness born out of accumulated wrong thought, word, act, and deed. We would not fear true darkness, uppercase darkness, which our African ancestors call the Aman, the absolute, the all in all, consciousness conscious of itself, the womb, night sky, eyes closed in meditation, silence, blackness, the unity from which we arise and to which we return, the source of all creation. This blackness is not just about a color, like having a black president. It is about a consciousness. Unitive consciousness is able to see the part, whole, and interconnection between the underlying unity in the human family and throughout creation. Dr. Malana Karinga helped us overcome being spooked up and confused in reconnecting with blackness by teaching us how to light the black dark candle of unity, Umoja, in the celebration of Christmas, of Kwanzaa. There you go, Christmas, Kwanzaa. Yeah, see, Kwanzaa. This is what we're overcoming, you know? This is just right under the veil. What is our mission on earth? Well, celestial blackness, when mirrored in our terrestrial home, earth, means that our mission is to produce the body of light in the world. It is no wonder Jeremiah titled his volumes, Egypt, the Light of the World. It is no wonder folks get all excited when they say Amen in church, because it takes them back to black, a unity in consciousness where light streams forth, showing solutions to life's problems. Yes, when mirrored in our terrestrial, our earthly home, our mission is to produce the body of light in the world. It is not about the body of white. Along the way, we have become captive of and captivated by the body of white, or the form aspect of the white man in his agenda. I can hear the words of Malcolm X now. We've been took, hoodwinked, and bamboozled. Yes, we became captive of and captivated by the body of white, the form aspect of the white man who is only and incidental appearance and expression along the way. When we reflect on all the negative associations of lowercase black and dark, it is no wonder that we have felt a loss of ability to hold in contact within uppercase blackness and darkness of our divinity. After all, for 2,000 years, we have been taught that a god is a figure of a man who was depicted to look nothing like black, dark, or African people. As a consequence, we must regain sight of how to navigate as and within blackness. Where are we today? We are the same ancestors who are now watching the shade go steadily up, and shards of light are coming through as we enter into this cycle of our earth, and we're making our gradual, arduous uphill climb into a reascension, a re-spiritualization of consciousness. But we're just at that hatch mark in terms of this shift. We are making our return journey home in the spirit of Sankofa, in this planetary paradigm shift. Dr. Charles Finch details the convergence of the ages, and it's what I call the spiritual implications of the perfect storm. So we must be responsive to the earth now being bathed in these spiritual energies that assist our reascension. This is how we make the grade in our initiation back into light. So how do we get back to the divine architectural design of building character, institutions, in a world filled with light? Our African ancestors gave us the key terms Kaaba for building the lighted temple and deciphering our outgoing footsteps. These terms Kaaba correspond with our divine trinity, Osir, Oset, and Haru, which is our African spirituality. In our African spirituality reflects both our celestial divinities and our terrestrial African family. We must retrace our symbols that have made their way through Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, back to their African source, reclaim and reconnect with their primal potency. I know I'm running out of time, so I'm just going to summarize. So, all right. So to assure victorious African journey in unfolding consciousness, George James has charged it as our duty to let the world know of the tremendous contributions that African people have made to world civilization as curative and as prescriptive for this racialization process that we have undergone and endured, as ameliorative for this inferiority and superiority complexes. We must learn our sacred science of Kemet and keys to building the lighted temple. We must restore our families, our immediate families, reach out to our communities, and then reconnect with our world family and world community. And then finally, in our victorious African journey, in unfolding consciousness, let our black generative organs and our black minds be about creating the body of light in the world. That is our mission.